Alright, I think we're live, kind of. Hey, we're live. What is up, fellow armchair astronauts? Okay, let me just finish making sure everything's set up right. Alright. Howdy, everyone. We're back with Kerbal Space Program. With all the mods that exist in the universe installed, obviously. And in the last stream, we launched our first successful craft to orbit. And it went a little bit beyond orbit. It is now orbiting the sun. We'll go see what orbit around the sun it's in exactly. There's Earth. And our craft is on that trajectory. So it didn't get much beyond escape trajectory or velocity. You can see it didn't even come close to Mars. It probably wouldn't have made it to Venus, although I really have no idea how effective. Oh yeah, you can see it did quite a bit of a plane change. It's really not a very efficient escape from Earth. I'm sure if that was more efficient, we quite possibly could have gotten to Mars or Venus with it. Oh man, everything's freaking out in this screen because I don't really know why it's freaking out like that. Anyways, back to the Space Center. Off camera, I've done some stuff. A little bit of stuff. Let me show you. So with our rocket that we had, I made a new second stage, and I kept the old first stage to make it a bit more capable. Alright. So here it is, the Merryweather B. It's been upgraded quite a bit. Its first stage is entirely the same, no changes there. But the second stage is 100% new. So we'll take a look at that. So it uses this RD0105 engine. Which one? Oh yeah, 0105. We don't have the tech for the upgraded version, the 0109. This engine, what was this engine? I know it was a Russian upper stage, but yeah, used on the Luna and Vostok rockets for the R7 series of launchers in Russia. On there we also have a bunch of little RCS ports. They just use nitrogen. I think, let's see, yeah, we still only have nitrogen, nitrous oxide, and helium. So we're going to stick with nitrogen for now. And this whole rocket is capable of lifting about, oops, didn't want to do that. Oh, what did I do? There we go. This rocket is capable of lifting about 850 kilograms to low Earth orbit. Which you can see if we right click on this, 865 kilograms, and it's got 9,500 meters per second of delta V. It's got a pretty long burning second stage, which is probably fine. It's got 0.6 or 0.76 thrust to weight ratio. So that should be plenty fine. It might, because we're going to have low gravity losses, we might even be able to lift a little bit more than that. But I just said 850 or so for now. And I put it in here as a sub-assembly so we can access it easily. So we're going to launch that today. But first we have to accept some contracts. Now, that second stage can only be lit once, so putting a satellite into a specific orbit probably won't be doable right now. I mean, it's probably doable, but it's going to be tricky, and I don't want to accept it and then risk, you know, launching a bunch of rockets that'll not do it, and possibly risk even failing it if we run out of time, although they do have a pretty long duration. So I think we're better off doing something like just science data around Earth and sounding rocket contracts, which don't provide a ton of income, but they will give us something to do while we wait for new tech to be unlocked. As you can see, we have 84 days until basic avionics is unlocked. And we want basic avionics not for really anything that's in there. We really want it because it's a prerequisite for stability in early pros, which has the 1 kilonewton thruster and these better RCS quads, which those will allow us to more accurately place satellites into specific orbits. So what we're going to do is put a little payload on top of our rocket here. We'll probably just put an Explorer 1 probe on it, because why not? We don't really have anything else we can use. It's cheap. I mean, I guess we could put a sounding rocket core or something on it, but I mean, it's 158 funds. We'll be fine just doing that. Let's pop one of those down. And we will go to our sub-assemblies. Merriweather B. Now, we could just use the old one, which... Let's, oops. Let's put a payload fairing on this quick. Boom. Alright, we'll just save that as Untitled Craft. The original one cost slightly less funds, but I mean, we could do that, but I'd really rather test out this rocket because it's totally worth those like 200 funds to get this better rocket working, because then once we unlock that next tech tree node, we will be able to use this rocket for better contracts. So it's worth the extra money for us having that increased payload capacity. So what should we name this one? We just named that one Merriweather 1, didn't we? I really don't know what to name this rocket here. Let's just name it Test Flight 1, because it's a test flight of our new rocket. Let's make sure the staging is correct. We want that on its own stage. Other than that, I think everything looks good. Yes. It's going to take 47 days to build. It's fine with me. Let's build it. Another thing this rocket will be able to do is send payloads on lunar flybys, which is great. We might even be able to do that. I'm probably gonna wait until we have enough money to upgrade the mission control and tracking station. We still need about 35,000 funds before we're able to do that at all, because we don't have maneuver nodes until then. I can probably do it without maneuver nodes. It's just going to be a little bit trickier. We might try it without maneuver nodes. But first, let's see what contracts we can accept. I probably won't accept the high altitude just because I'm not sure if we're going to make it or not, and I'd rather not lose 6,000 funds. We'll definitely accept medium altitude, and we'll definitely accept science data. We could possibly do this. I'm not sure. Ooh, excuse me. I'm not sure if we'll have the delta V, but we probably will. I mean, 3 million meters is not that high. The lunar flyby, that'll get us a fair bit of money. Even the advance for it is pretty decent. Actually, that would be enough to get us the maneuver nodes right away. Although it only has a year duration, so I'm not sure how long it would take to upgrade the tracking station and the mission control. We could go with upgrading mission control right away. I say let's do that. Let's see how long that'll take to mission control. 198 days. And I think that the tracking station might even take longer than that. I think it's dependent on how much it costs. The tracking station might take double what mission control takes. So yeah, we'll have to wait to accept that moon contract. But we can definitely get science data, which will get us a fair bit of income, and this on top of that will make like 5,000 funds from this, which is not much, but it's 5,000 funds to test our rocket. That's good enough. So let's warp to complete on that. And roll out. I want to check how much delta V that has with just the Explorer probe on it, though. It has 11,900. How much does it take to reach the moon? Let me look that up quick. To reach the moon for a flyby takes 2.44 plus 0.68 plus, let's just say 0.2, about that much. Yeah, this probably wouldn't have enough to fly by the moon. So we'll have to wait until we get that 1 kilonewton thruster so we can make a little tiny third stage to give everything a little bit more boost. Okay. And let's launch. Now we're going to launch this into a pretty inclined orbit, probably 50 degrees. That way we can just cover more of the Earth and collect any science we may have missed on that first flight. Which I think we missed quite a bit since we immediately went into escape trajectory. I also did some testing with planes in a sandbox game, and they seem really broken for me. I just have a lot of problems with landing and taking off. The runway's bugged, and the landing gear seemed bugged too. So I don't know if we're going to get much use out of this until we get like way into advanced engines. Although we might use that to recover boosters and stuff. Solid rocket boosters are kind of overpriced. I know they're based on actual prices, but for gameplay purposes they're really overpriced. So we might be able to throw some parachutes and stuff on solid rocket boosters and actually make those viable. Let's set up this little launch quick. This we could probably go to 40. Okay, that all looks good. Yeah. Orbit inclination to 50 degrees. Show on nav ball. Okay. We also have this little camera, which is awesome. So let's do that. And let's launch. There we go. Oh, the shadow of the umbilical falling away. That's pretty awesome. Of course, there's tons of Z fighting, because why not? I wish the shadows were sharper. I'm pretty sure I have them maxed in graphics settings, but they always seem really blobby. And there's our pitch over. Passing through a layer of clouds. One thing we're also going to try to do soon is set up operations at Vandenberg over on the west coast. That way we can launch into polar orbits, because we will have probably a few contracts to do that. So it'll be worth it to have a upgraded launch pad there so we can launch bigger rockets. Alright. See how we're doing? We're at 10 kilometers. Going 500 meters per second. We're about halfway through the first stage. Getting some substantial heating effects on the nose here. It shouldn't be a problem, but it is kind of weird looking. "30 seconds left on the first stage." There's our camera. Look at that view. Now, one thing I'm not sure if it's going to work is the RCS ports I put underneath here for ullage. Because they're kind of like underneath the engine and they stick out through in between the struts, but I don't know if KSP is going to let those work. Alright, just about Miko. Miko. Staging. Engine ignition. Yeah, and it doesn't look like those are working at all. So we'll have to probably put some RCS quads on here once we unlock those. Let's get rid of that fairing. And see our tiny little payload on there. We've entered space. Oh, we can still see the camera on the stage. Oh, it went out of physics range looks like. Although, it looks like I can still see it. I don't think it should be out of physics range. Because it is greatly, yeah. Definitely not out. I'm not sure why it's not working with the camera that far away. Maybe it's a camera mod? Because I'm pretty sure physics range, I have a mod to extend that quite a bit. Forget which mod it is though. Looks like we'll be in roughly 400 kilometer orbit. I'm gonna try and cut the engine to keep it pretty circular. Although, with our time to apoapsis, let's actually drop our flight angle. Because we're gonna reach orbit probably long before we reach our apoapsis, just because the payload's so light. Yeah, let's drop that even more. We still got 3 minutes to apoapsis. We've got less than 3 minutes on the stage and only about 2,500 until we reach orbit, 2,500 meters per second, which is gonna happen in like a minute 20 seconds maybe, or less than that, less than a minute maybe even. Okay, I had calculated before how much power this was going to use, and it looks like I was right with those. Barely any. I wasn't really sure because the way Realism Overhaul reports electricity is in kilowatts, which this electric charge is kind of unitless, so kilowatts doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I guess 1 kilowatt is equal to 1 electric charge per second. So this should be using, yeah, 1.18. Which I think this is using some amount. I'm not sure exactly how much this is using. It says 0. I don't know. Okay, our apoapsis is getting away from us now. Let's really pump that down. Most rockets will pitch up because they have really low thrust to weight ratios. This one has a really high thrust to weight ratio because the payload's extremely lightweight. And we're at 50 degrees inclination, perfect. Oh, I didn't even realize that we made orbit. Alright. We still had 2,300 meters per second of delta V. Not quite circular, but close enough. Yeah, it's a little high, but we'll still be within the low Earth regime. Let's test these. Let's change that to killer rotation. Actually, let's say point prograde. Awesome. And let's make sure we activate that. And then let's stage. Then switch to this. Can we like tip ourselves away? You do that little trick where even though you only have sideways pointing RCS, you like let it oscillate. So what I'm doing here to push the stage away from the payload, I'm letting this oscillate, and then once this RCS is pointed forward, I can fire it, and that'll rotate the stage back around, and then this one will be pointed forward. So overall I have a net thrust backwards. You can see we're moving away from the payload there. Okay, so let's collect some science and get rid of this. Radiation data. Oh yeah, we probably have everything for over Earth's water. Once we get over Europe, we can collect some other stuff. There we go. Some new stuff. Oh, we already have radiation data. Temperature. Impact. Impact is not biome specific. Telemetry. I think it was all of them. Let's transmit data. Commenter says, "What are you doing?" I am testing my new rocket in my space program. This new rocket is a very heavy launch vehicle. It can lift almost 1 metric ton into orbit. But you have to remember that this is, for our game, if we bring up alarm clock here, it's November of 1953. So we're quite a few years ahead of real life in terms of launch capabilities. Alright. We're here. This is Israel right here, and the rest of the Middle East, I think. It's kind of hard to see, it's dark. Here's the Nile. Yeah, so that's Israel. Where's the Red Sea? Is this the Red Sea? It's hard because a lot of this is desert with no lights. This looks like the Himalayas. Oh wait, no. What is it? Oh, I see. Okay. No, that's ocean. So like here is Kuwait. Yeah. Over here are the Himalayas. And kind of here too. Where's our rocket? Oh, there it is. We do have desert data. Temperature and telemetry. Then we'll dip down south of Australia and back up. I think as we come over Mexico, we can pass over a mountains biome. I don't think we've gotten that yet. We're also going to pass over pretty close to where I live, in Texas. That's grassland still. Yeah, still grasslands. Okay, maybe the mountain biome doesn't dip down that far. I think right over the Great Lakes we might get a new biome as well. Yeah, shores. Oh, I guess we already got that for shores. Oh, yeah, we got temperature for shores? Oh, now we're over grasslands again. Missed my opportunity to get telemetry too. Maybe some up here is shores as well. Oh, we did get telemetry from shores. Okay. Let's make a few more orbits. I know we're still missing mountain, so we'll probably be able to get it here. We're gonna pass like right over Colorado. No, we're over desert. We're south. Highlands. I don't know if highland and mountains are the same or if they're different. Now we're gonna pass over where I used to live. Minnesota. Oh yeah, we already got shores, okay. Let's make one more orbit. See if we can get onto those mountain biomes. There's Hawaii. Hawaii's pretty cool. Never been there. Maybe one day. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Come on. We're like right over the Rockies in like Oregon or something. Nope, still just highlands. So maybe it is just highlands. I'm not sure. There is Vancouver and Seattle. That's where Blue Origin is. They're a rocket company. Alright, back to Space Center. We've gotten some science. Why do I feel like I forgot to accept the contracts? Maybe because I did? Did I forget to accept the contracts? I did. Oh no. I can still accept this one. And I can quick pop back onto that probe. Right here. Wait. Why are we suddenly over Europe again? And this is the probe. And it's in this orbit. When did we launch? Test Flight 1. Test Flight 1 probe. I'm a little confused by this. Can we go? What? This didn't exist before we launched, did it? I'm checking the stream history right now. Yeah, I don't see it. I think this is a bug. I don't think this guy's supposed to exist. Says they're the same age, roughly. Because I think this is our first stage. Or our second stage, sorry. But now it's in this wonky orbit. Actually, it looks like it's the same inclination, it's just been translated. Well, I'm going to delete you. We're going to go to this guy. It's really weird. Not sure what would have caused that. Oh, and now it's this guy. One thing we can do is analyze telemetry and send that back. Oh, you know what? So this one stayed where it was supposed to be. It's the one that we were on. Its orbit got messed up when we when we hit Space Center there. So let's see if it happens to this one too. It's right over in North America. Let's hit Space Center. Let's see if it messed up this one too. No, that's still in the right place. Weird. So our first stage, so our payload its orbit got changed when we went back to the station. That's really interesting that would happen. Definitely a bug though. So, whatever. It's not really important. That was not a payload that we intended to use many times. It didn't have any solar panels on it. It was just meant to go grab some science and then die quietly. But, oh, oops. Where's our contract for getting the science data, though? Ugh, these scenes take forever to load. Which makes it really suck when you click the wrong one. Didn't I click accept on the one that said scientific data, or did I click can't decline? Did I click decline on that? Oh no, I completed it. Okay, I must have just blanked out when I went down here and trashed the notification. Alright, okay. So, we've got $63,000. We're waiting for this tech. Let's just warp to complete on basic avionics. Oh, yeah, see? It would have re-entered the atmosphere within a few days anyways. It wasn't in a very high orbit and it had no station keeping. Well, actually, the payload would have stayed longer because it was probably a bit more dense than the mostly empty upper stage. And that is done. So let's start researching this. It'll take 339 days. But it will very much be worth it, because it'll get us some more science stuff. Solar panels, which are important. We'll also get these quad core RCS quads and the 1 kilonewton thrusters, so we can make a little itsy bitsy upper stage. I think it's just this antenna, which yeah, good for comm satellites and geo and live video from the moon. Cool. And I think just unlocking this tech tree of basic avionics will upgrade our procedural avionics. So that's cool. Ooh, a warhead. 9 megatons. How much does that weigh? 2.8 tons. That's a big nuke. Docking ports. More CS quads. More avionics. Yeah, this would be a cool tech node too that we'll want soon for docking ports. First we'll probably want capsules before we get docking ports though. We just Gemini capsule. Oh yeah, basic capsules has the Mercury. I'm pretty sure this Mark 1 pod is exactly the same stats as the Mercury, but just a different model, so it doesn't really matter which one we get. They cost the same, and they cost the same to unlock and everything, so maybe we'll get the Mercury one just because it looks cool. This one looks kind of bland. This only costs 30 to unlock. Survivability, we can even start working on survivability right now. which is good because we have a contract for re-entry. And let us move stability and early probes up so that gets unlocked first. I mean, basic solids and basic construction would be useful, but not really necessary right now. We're actually going to put basic solids way down at the bottom. Okay, so what do we have to do next? More science data. We could totally do this one too, because it just needs to be above that and between that, which actually our last one totally got. So we might accept this one. This one doesn't give a ton of money, but I think this is like a line of contracts that eventually get better. Like if you go in here and it's like yeah, weather contracts. You have atmospheric analysis and geostationary weather network. This. I'm pretty sure they all give you more money as you go down the line. So that'll be cool. We also have crude stuff. We should get working on that crude stuff. It only took like, what, 3 or 4 years from the first satellite to the first man in space in real life. We gotta beat that, you know? Except we probably won't. We will probably beat first man to space, but we probably won't beat the delta time between first satellite and first man in space. And I think what we might do actually, I really want this early probe stuff because that'll generate a lot of revenue for us. So I might, oh, what do we have available now? I didn't spend any funds on that. Does spending science points unlock these? It might. I'm not sure. How much is that gonna ramp it up? Only 297 days now. We can spend 10,000 funds on that to get it going a little faster. Only 280 days. Less than a year. Okay. So let's even build another rocket just like the one we just launched. I know it's kind of boring to just launch the same thing to LEO over and over again, but we gotta make money, man. And these first several streams of this are gonna be kind of boring anyways because, you know, it's not a particularly exciting moment, the early game. You kind of just launch to low Earth orbit because you don't have the capability to do anything else, but soon enough we will get the ability to launch to the moon, and then things kind of pick up. So we can do docking and stations and moon landings and then off to other planets. So let's test flight 2 and build. And warp to complete. This time I'm going to make sure to accept the contracts before I do the mission. Because I missed out on a bit of money that time. Alright. Accept them now. Atmospheric analysis. Science data. And you know, we definitely will get this actually. And then, oh, we can't have more than 3. Okay. So we should get good amount of funds. We'll get 1,700 for getting that, plus 1,000 we got before. We'll get a total of like 3,500, or sorry, 5,500 for this, and 7,000 for this. It's like in total about 10,000. It's pretty good. Nope. There we go. And launch. And this time we'll probably just launch to a 28-degree inclination orbit. Get rid of that. Ascent guidance. Orbit inclination. 28 degrees, because that's what we're at. What did this already set? Target, show on nav ball, execute. And okay. Let's launch. Takes off really quickly. Well, one, it seems like it takes off quickly because it's a kind of small rocket. Big rockets look like they take off slower, even though they actually kind of rocket off the pad. That's the term rocket. But this one also has a slightly higher thrust-to-weight ratio than many rockets. Like, if you see videos of the Saturn V taking off, it might look like it's taking off a lot slower than, say, like a Atlas V or a Falcon 9. When really it's taking off, it's actually accelerating and going about the same speed as, you know, all three of those rockets are accelerating at about the same rate because they all have pretty similar thrust-to-weight ratios, depending on the payload and configuration, of course. But the Saturn V looks like it's going a lot slower because it's so much taller, and you don't really have a sense of scale. I think I should have put the camera on the other side of the booster, that way we can see the horizon when we launch. Because right now we're kind of upside down. We could always just roll it over. I don't think this rocket's supposed to be able to roll, though. So I've only got one engine down there. It has, you know, 4 combustion chambers, which I don't even think on the RD-107 that the main combustion chambers gimbal at all. I think they use vernier engines to do all of that. Oh. Looks like we, ran out of fuel there. And get rid of those. We are now in space, so we can just quickly send back a little bit of data. That gets us our first contract. Let's change this to like a low number immediately. Oh, Mad Cobra, you just kind of pointed out my mistake in the title. This is supposed to be part 3, not part 2. Can change that right now, actually. Boom. Now it should say part 3 in the stream. You might have to refresh to see that, which doesn't really matter if you do, but probably wouldn't have noticed that for a while. Okay, so for this contract, we have to be between that, which we currently are, and we should be when we shut off our engine, and above 2290. Which will easily have the Delta V4. I'm not really sure how this orbit's supposed to do atmospheric measurements. Maybe measuring characteristics of the very thin outer atmosphere at different elevations. But still, then I'd expect its periapsis to be a little bit lower. Yes, this is pretty realistic, Mad Cobra, on the length of burn time for this stage. In total, it's about 5.5 minutes, which is completely realistic for real-life rockets. Even some rockets like the Atlas V on their upper stage have an even longer burn time. I think actually the upper stage for SLS, its burn time is like in the range of 15 minutes. And the reason for that is you'll put on a really tiny engine on your upper stage and then a ton of fuel. And the tiny engine is going to have less thrust and use less fuel, but it's also going to have less mass, which means you can have a larger payload. So as long as it doesn't take so long that you begin falling back down to Earth, you're good to go. So you just want to pack on as much fuel as you can until you reach that point. And now we're in orbit. Just going to wait for everything to become right. Boom. So we got that contract. What was our other contract? That was a sounding rocket. So yeah, you can actually see we even turned off the engine with 42 seconds left of fuel. Actually, while we're waiting here, let me look up what the burn time is on like the Centaur upper stage on the Atlas 5. Yeah, that is, SLS does have such a long burn time because it's made for deep space missions. So ideally with SLS, you're only going to use a very small part of the upper stage to place the payload into low Earth orbit, and then you'll use all that other fuel to go to the moon or Mars or wherever. The burn time on the Atlas 5 upper stage is 450 seconds. What is that? That's like 7.5 minutes. On the Delta 4, I think it's even longer than on the Atlas 5. One rocket that has a really short burn time on the upper stage is the Falcon 9, because it's just got the Merlin 1D engine is just extremely overpowered for an upper stage engine, but it's worth it to SpaceX because then they only need to develop one engine rather than spend the extra money to develop a higher efficiency upper stage engine. And the reason the Atlas 5 uses such a long burn time is because really where most of the money is in space is sending satellites to geosynchronous orbit. So having that really efficiency hydrolox long burning upper stage is good for sending larger payloads to that high orbit. That's why Atlas 5 is not used very often to send things to LEO, and also why it's used to send things to other planets, like New Horizons was launched on an Atlas 5. Curiosity rover was launched on Atlas 5. We can actually time warp until we get to this contract. Wait a second. Okay, yeah. There we go. Contract got. So let's actually going to activate this on stage. Okay, now these two are separated. So let's see. Actually, let's click this. Let's see. Time until decay, 800 years. But the upper stage, time until decay. Oh, that's interesting. It's actually longer, even though it says 6.8 kilometers per day, which tells me it would be, or I guess that's on the apoapsis. Okay, yeah, there is an orbital decay mod that I have installed, so let's hit that. Well, let's see if that bug that happened earlier happens again. Okay, so they still got the same orbit, so the bug did not happen. Alright, so maybe, hopefully that bug won't happen to us again, because in later missions where we want to maintain a specific orbit, which is most missions, that's going to be a really annoying bug. But yeah. How does the orbital decay mod affect time compression? I'm assuming you mean time warp. How it works is it basically just calculates how much it should decay based on a bunch of factors, and it'll continue to calculate that even when you're warping through time, but it only calculates it every so often, so it's not extremely accurate. Let me pull it up right here. I think if I go in settings, yeah, number of simulation iterations 100. I don't know if that's 100 per what. But yeah, it works fine with time warp. It'll like you might have seen earlier when I was warping through to do that tech node or built our rocket, it actually popped up in here and said that our craft was re-entering the atmosphere. So it works fine with time warp, and it's actually a pretty cool mod because you don't really need to worry about space debris in low Earth orbit at all when you install it. And it also adds things like when you build a space station, you have to worry about refueling it so it doesn't re-enter the atmosphere, and you have to boost it every so often. So that's cool. Anyways, I've been streaming for an hour, and I have work in the morning, and I have to do dishes still and some other chores, so I think I'm going to cut it here. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll probably stream again, maybe later this week. I don't know. Another thing I have to say is that in about a week and a half I will be flying across the country, and I won't be back home for like almost a month. Well, I'll be home in about 2.5 weeks after that, but then I'm moving to another apartment, so I probably won't be able to produce any new videos for about a month, which means possibly an even larger, like, 1.5 gap between videos. So yeah, sorry about that, kind of. Not really sorry, but I'm a little sorry. Yeah, thanks for watching, and see everyone later.